Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OurScoop.com. You already know.
Welcome back to The Scoop, OurScoop.com's podcast, Season 7, Episode 34. I'm John DiCarlo, joined in person for the first time since, I don't know, before the pandemic, right?
My guess is it's got to be late February, early March of 2020.
Yeah.
Probably first week of March 2020 is my guess. What do we say? It was the Fran Duffy episode?
Yes, and actually to do a quick segue into next week, Fran Duffy from the Philadelphia Eagles, who does a couple of great podcasts for them, Journey to the Draft, is one of them. If you're an NFL fan, an Eagles fan, an NFL Draft fan, it's a terrific podcast. He's actually going to be with us next week. But yeah, the last time we recorded in person, Fran was here with us.
Who was on that pod? It was you, me, was Kyle or Sam here?
I can't quite remember. I don't know. But today, the voice you're hearing is Sam Cohn, Dante Colinelli, Caden Steele with us in person. Sam thinks this is... I mean, in fairness, we decided why don't we just record in person, and Caden, shows us a good top end speed getting over here. So it wasn't technically.
It gave us some time to put out the call.
Yeah.
For the mailbag.
Yeah.
So it worked out.
Nobody bit in the 7 minutes we gave people to submit mailbag questions on Twitter, but we do have some from the message boards. So what's going on, guys? It's good to see y'all.
This is cool. It's nice to be able to do this with everyone sitting here. It feels like a little bit more normal, 2 years of Zoom podcasting has been very odd.
The chemistry is going to be all messed up.
Oh.
We've gotten. I was saying before the show,
I don't need your negativity.
We've gotten so used to me, Caden, and Dante doing the pod together. Now we introduce you to this.
Walked right into that. Considering you've rehearsed it 5 minutes ago, and I still forgot.
The pod before the pod.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, did you guys feel better with Kyle and I not being around last week?
We felt like kids whose parents went on vacation. We had the house to ourselves. Yeah. We threw a little bit of a party. We made sure everything was cleaned up before you guys got back.
Yeah, we had no idea.
My mom always tells a story that when she was in high school, my grandmother, her mom was always super crazy about everything being spotless in the house. And when her parents went on vacation, my grandparents went on vacation, she made sure the place was again spotless when they came back. And my grandmother walked up to one little frame and was like, "This was moved half a centimeter. Did you have people over?"
That's incredible.
Wow.
Not wild.
That's crazy.
Caden, you want to tell us about the sweatshirt that you have on, which I love?
Yeah, the Right On sweatshirt.
Yes.
I got it for Christmas, but I like the fit. It makes me feel comfortable, and if I'm gonna be there, that's fit.
It just says "Right On" in lowercase with a period. Just a tremendous sweatshirt.
Right on.
Yeah. John, were you saying "right on" in the 80s?
I can't remember that far back. I don't think we were really saying stuff like that. We were watching movies like Back to the Future, which we were watching a clip of before we started. One of your personal favorites.
Yes, my new Back to the Future.
Joining us next week on the pod, Michael J. Fox. Christopher Lloyd. No, I wish. I don't think that's going to happen.
Probably not.
We're not.
But Fran Duffy's still going to be a great guest.
I would argue equally as good, if not second best.
Better NFL draft analyst,
I would imagine. We don't know how plugged in Michael J. Fox is.
He might be really plugged in.
Nonetheless, we're very excited to have Fran Duffy.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Fran Duffy, new head coach at LaSalle.
Right. I don't think Dump's going to be joining us next week. But again, you never know. We could just be lining up guests left and right here. 3.5 hour pod.
The scoop in the summer that's our prime time to get crazy guests. We get some good guests in the summer.
Yes. This week, a little bit of a lighter agenda for this week. We'll be talking a little bit more. Obviously, spring football is over. You guys did a great job of recapping the Cherry and White game. They've officially announced the arrivals of Ian Stewart, James Firmino, and Jacob Porter. We'll talk a little bit about that. A little bit more portal stuff. Basketball mailbag questions to get to as well. Temple, things are starting to heat up a little bit for the Owls now with the transfer portal. We'll get to that in a second. But before we get to all that, famous number 34s. I mean, there's a very easy one, but I don't want to...
David Ortiz.
All right. Oh, makes sense.
That's a good one.
Caden's going to have a couple Eagles outtakes for us. I know what you're going to say. Say it.
There's an Eagles 34. I can't think of one. I wonder right now. Kerry Vincent Jr., defensive back out of LSU. He's number 34 in the Eagles. We traded draft pick.
Wasn't Reno Mahe 34?
I think he was 34
That's
as well.
what I thought you were going to say. Dante?
I don't know. I'm blanking.
What about Ricky Williams, your guy?
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I forgot about Ricky Williams.
Chubb was
like-
34, right?
Yeah, Charles Barkley.
Yes.
Thurman Thomas.
Thurman Thomas.
Yeah, man,
I mean, I was thinking Barkley's
that's an easy one.
Bo Jackson.
You have Earl Campbell.
Bo Jackson.
34?
Bo
With the
Jackson
Raiders?
wore number 34.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was
He was crazy.
He was
Well, we had
ridiculous.
talked about last week that we got 32s and 34s mixed up.
Yes,
That was like
we
our,
were talking about that.
That was our hitch. And guessing 32s is we
But
couldn't.
last week was episode 33. Why were you guys getting 32s and 34s mixed up?
I don't know. Maybe that was 2 weeks. I don't know.
Did we not?
Did we?
Did we record the right
Maybe
episode number?
Maybe you guys did record during the party that you guys threw and you were impaired. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
Hopefully you weren't.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Good thing the parents weren't home.
Or is this supposed to be episode 33?
No. I thought last week was episode 33. If so, then we're off to a terrific start. We can't even get the... yeah, last week was season 7, episode 33.
Oh.
I'm right.
Yeah,
you're
because
wrong.
we said Larry Bird, so we definitely did have 33 last week. I don't know, maybe 30.
It's just why you guys need parental guidance.
Yeah, this is
Anyway.
Anyway.
moving on.
Yes, moving right along. So as I said a few minutes ago, so we've done some coverage on these guys. If you've listened to the podcast before, if you've subscribed to Al Scoop, you know a little bit about Ian Stewart, James Firmino, and Jacob Porter. So these guys are, I guess we'll say, late additions to the 2022 class. Firmino had actually verbally committed during that February signing day period. We have not talked to him, right?
No.
So he needed to, as we understood, wait until the end of, the end of the year to sign his 8 agreement, wherever it is. I don't think he's actually signing an official national letter of intent. Jacob Porter from North Allegheny High School, just outside of Pittsburgh, verbally committed. He had been committed to Yale, and then I guess decommitted from Yale. So Temple's adding some, adding a player there as kind of an outside linebacker, defensive end type. The son of Joey Porter, who played in the NFL for 14 years, something like that,
He's
with
a
the
long time
Steelers and
player. Yeah.
the Dolphins. His son, Jacob's brother, very good player at Penn State. And then Ian Stewart, again, if you subscribe to Al Scoop, you've read Dante's story about him, the Michigan State transfer wide receiver. Just a quick bit on these guys. Now, Firmino, I guess, is maybe a developmental type on the offensive line. Again, there's not a single position, as we've been saying, that isn't really being rebuilt with this team. Dante with Stewart, I think we've talked about it, just recently. He kind of gives them a bigger target, right? I don't know. I have no concept yet of how often he's going to play, how much he's going to play, but they obviously feel like he can help. What do you think he brings them?
Yeah, I think he's going to be the guy that they're going to hope that he's some version of Brandon Mack. Because that is a player that they've really been missing the past couple of years, that tall, big, physical, deep threat where, it's double coverage, but I'm going to chuck it up there anyway because I have confidence in my guy to go up and make a play. They've really been missing that. Last season, obviously, everything was a disaster, but that didn't help with spacing. And even the year before that, even during the COVID year, they missed that. So I think for Mack, it's really just that role is important in college football, and they're hoping that Ian Stewart is that type of player where he's just going to go up and high point the ball, make a play. There's some other guys on the roster he's going to have to compete with, I assume, guys like Kwesi Evans, Stevenson still around, those bigger guys. So I'm assuming that will be kind of his competition. When we saw them play at the spring game, they had a bunch of smaller, quick guys out there as starters. It was Fox, Ahmad Anderson, and Jose Barbone. So they don't really have a player like this. So I'm assuming that Ian Stewart can, carve out a nice little role for himself if he comes in and impresses in the fall.
Mm-hmm. Another bit of news to pass along: Chauncey Moore has entered the transfer portal. Now, he had an interception in the Cherry White game.
Yeah. So
is this? Caden, I'll throw this over to you first. Is this surprising at all or no?
I don't think it's necessarily surprising, especially with the safety depth. Have an older guy. It sounds from that just Stan told him to move on, and then they had a mutual agreement. So he gets an opportunity to play at maybe the FCS school, become a starter. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. I think I saw on his Twitter. So he wants to prove himself, get an opportunity to go to the league. So him and Temple weren't exactly a fit anymore, and so it seems like a mutual agreement.
Yeah, and I think we'd be shocked if we didn't see. Again, we've talked about this in previous weeks. We're speculating at this point, but I would be mildly surprised if we don't see a few more names at this point. I think it would be kind of irresponsible to speculate on the podcast here, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the time we're talking to you guys again next week, if there weren't maybe a couple more names to hit the portal here, because as Caden said, guys meet with the coaches after the spring and probably assess where they are and say, okay, well, again, not that we're all in on these conversations, but I would imagine they go something like, hey, if you want to play X number of snaps a game, great. That's either going to be possible here or it's not going to be possible here. And so, I think Chauncey Moore's name could be one of perhaps a few that we'll see here. And again, we'll see what they get out of a guy like Jacob Porter, whether he's a guy that red shirts. Again, they had recruited him initially. Again, commits to Yale, decommits from Yale, comes to Temple. So we'll see what he gives them. And again, obviously, a guy like James Firmino, one of the guys that came over to the States with Brandon Collier and his group. And so Temple's familiar with that program. Again, we'll see where he fits in. Again, we've talked about the fact that they were moving guys around in the spring game. There were issues with snaps. Isaac Moore did not play. We'll see in retrospect how much that contributed to some of the poor play we saw in the offensive line. But again, that's kind of a bit of a rebuild there. But so those three names have become official in terms of being added to the roster and added to that 22 class. Another thing we wanted to talk about, it's kind of an interesting thing, and we'll see if that actually comes to fruition at all, but this is what we're left to do sometimes in terms of continuing to cover the transfer portal. Now, Stan Drayton did say on multiple occasions, including right after the Cherry and White game, he was kind of more or less lukewarm on the quarterback play. And he said flat out, we can potentially add some depth there. So we'll play the what-if game for a second here, because Danny Langsdorff, Temple's offensive coordinator, just followed Florida's Emery Jones on Twitter. Now, of course, he was Florida starter this year. He has 2 years of eligibility left, was a former 4-star recruit. Again, I don't know how far along this is, if Temple has a shot at him, but again, we'll play the what-if game here, because I know this is what listeners would want us to do. Let's say this starts to progress. They bring him in for a visit. What do you guys make of this? I mean, I guess on one hand, we shouldn't be surprised that they're looking into the portal for additional quarterbacks, because Stan Drayton pretty much said that they would. But Dante, I'll throw this over to you first. You've watched a lot of college football for the stuff that you do for Blue Chip Scouting. How much Emery Jones have you seen? I know we were talking about this the other day. You thought he'd probably be a solid addition. I mean, he had 19 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, decent completion percentage. Wasn't the best quarterback in the SEC, but he's not a bad quarterback either. What would you make of this?
Yeah, I think this would be a really good get for them. I think a lot of fans will kind of look at this maybe at face value and go, we just got a transfer quarterback from the SEC. We don't want to go down that road again. There's a very big difference between Dejuan Matthews playing in, 4 games at Georgia, and Emery Jones being roughly a starting quarterback last year, and he had some success. So I think that would be a really good get for them. He's a former 4-star, like you said. He's got all the arm talent in the world. He's very, very mobile. I think this would be very, very different than getting a player like Dejuan Matthews. Emery Jones a little bit more of a proven commodity. He lost his job to a guy in Anthony Richardson who's built like a linebacker that runs like a running back. I really I'm not a huge Emery Jones guy for the NFL draft, but if we're talking college quarterback play, a drop in competition from the SEC to the AAC, I think will be hugely beneficial for him. If you're going off of natural tools, he's probably one of the better quarterbacks in the entire conference, with Desmond Ridder out, and UCF is kind of juggling a couple of names there, so I don't really know what they're doing. So if Temple gets Emery Jones, I think that's a really good get. He's probably one of the best quarterbacks in the portal right now. Is he going to come in and change the entire program and be this world beater at quarterback? No, probably not, but I think he's probably more consistent than somebody like Dejuan Matthews. I think he's more ready to play than somebody like E.J. Warner, who maybe not is the future at that position. So he serves as kind of a upgrade right now and a bridge to whoever that future ends up being. So I think it'd be a really good get for them. You're going to watch Florida film, you're going to go, he's only average, but I think projecting him down a level really helps. I think that he'll be much better dealing with the defenses that you get here. I mean, when you play Alabama, that's 11 NFL players on the other side of the ball. Like it's ridiculous. So coming here, I think would be big for him, and I think it'd be a really good get for this staff. Even just on this staff went into the portal and got a 4-star recruit from Florida to come to Temple, who's not a nobody. So I think just perceptive wise, I think that that's really good for them both ways.
Caden and Sam, I was going to throw this out to you guys. Dante just alluded to this. You guys have both written about E.J. Warner. Obviously, he's going to be a true freshman coming here. He did come in for the spring game. Do you think, and again, this is just very much hypothetical what if, do you think this staff, without having talked to him, do you think they see Emery Jones as like a bridge guy to someone like E.J. Warner or whoever that, if they bring in another quarterback, do you see him as maybe just a transitional guy to get him in and give a guy like E.J. Warner or anybody else they bring in a year to redshirt?
I don't think it's crazy to say that. I think they like E.J. Warner for the future. Obviously, I think we've talked about before that Justin Lynch playing this past season, a true freshman, was not a super normal thing. E.J. Warner will probably come in, he might redshirt, he probably won't play his first 2 seasons, whatever. He'll get a chance to learn a ton over the next couple of years, and then maybe he's the quarterback after. But if they can get a guy like Emery Jones to come in, and whether he's pushing Dejuan, whether he's competing with Dejuan, or whether he's surpassed Dejuan, if they're able to get him, that could be a great get for them in terms of the short term. And then John, as you said, that he could become a bridge. But right now we know nothing about how E.J. Warner is going to be at the college level. He's not going to be the same quarterback now as he's in 2 years. He's not going to be, we've only seen him play high school. We don't, if that, we haven't even really seen him play high school. So we only know so much about him. But no, to your point, John, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say that he could be that bridge guy if they see E.J. as a potential future quarterback for them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possible situation where he is the bridge guy, but you look at the roster right now, I feel like the coaching staff, although E.J. Warner might be that guy, they're not exactly thinking about, 2 to 3 years down the line, because right now, like, Stan Drayton talked about in this press conference, they said, Dejuan could help the quarterback room, something of that nature. He talked about, it wasn't exactly, words of confidence regarding Dejuan Matthews. He looked kind of up and down in the spring game, and right now, they need to make an upgrade, and, Emery Jones, like Dante said, he didn't dominate the SEC. He wasn't in first team, second team All SEC. He lost his job to Anthony Richardson, but he'll still probably be a likely upgrade over Dejuan Matthews, and it would give him something, it gives him a chance to compete next year. And that leaves a lot of questions about where would Dejuan Matthews go, if we're
That's
speculating.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that just in our group chat. Kyle had said, I don't know that, if they bring someone in like him, we can't speak on behalf of Dejuan Matthews, but if they bring someone like him in, Dejuan either says, okay, I'm going to beat you out, I'm going to stay and beat you out for the job, or maybe he's like, I'm going to leave immediately and go down to the FCS level. And I don't know. I don't know if he wants to do that, because this would be his second time transferring, so he can't just hit the portal and be eligible right away unless he gets a waiver, appeals for a waiver, and can play right away and say, well, I want to go closer to home. But again, we're kind of kicking the can down the road there. But something interesting to follow. And again, I don't think we would be surprised if they add depth at really any position.
They should.
Any position. Any position.
With quarterback, too, specifically, you got to just throw darts at the board until you hit. It's too important of a position to just not follow Emery Jones on Twitter, as vague as that is, and we have no idea if they had an actual conversation or what that was like. But, you're not going anywhere without a quarterback. So you got to explore all your options there. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the transfer portal. If you can't get a guy like Emery Jones, last time I checked, he does not have any gigantic offers. A Temple offer would be up there with his best offers. There are not a lot of Power 5 offers on there, so it would not. I don't know how serious they are, but for the sake of this question, let's assume they're serious. Would not surprise me if Temple ends up being his best offer.
And kind of going off Dante, though, quarterbacks, especially, in college, first year of a program, it's not like the NFL where they're tied to a contract. You're always looking to upgrade. If you can find someone a little bit better, it could take you to that next level. And I don't know if Temple, I mean, we're not inside there, believes, Dejuan Matthews is that guy to be the part of their first year rebuild leading that quarterback. And Emery Jones, if he is an upgrade, why not take a shot?
Yeah. So let's head over to the basketball mailbag, and this will answer the questions that you guys have. And it's really the next big thing here that's going on now. Again, the season's been over for a while. We've been talking about the fact that they are looking to add players in the transfer portal. And the two of the three mailbag questions we have here are about transfer portal additions. So the first one comes from Esther Boyer. That's the screen name. Esther Boyer is one of our, not the literal Esther Boyer, but the screen name, one of our House Scoop subscribers. Not the late Esther Boyer, who the Temple Music School is named after.
Yeah.
I actually did not make that connection. I'll be completely honest.
You need to know your
as long as
Temple
I
history.
have been
You wanna know
both
why?
at the school and involved with Owl Scoop, I never made the connection that the screen name Esther Boyer was the Boyer of Boyer School.
I love you, but I'm embarrassed for you.
The only reason
I'm
I
not
knew
really.
that,
I mean,
the only reason I knew that is because they sent me an email this morning telling me to fill out my SFF.
you're taking a music class?
For a Boyer class. See, that's the thing. I'm not taking a music class,
Mm.
and I don't know what I don't even know.
Clerical error.
I don't even know where Boyer is. Could not tell you. I know it exists.
Street.
I'm like Sam, but I don't know where it is.
Isn't
Like,
it
if
next
you-
to Annenberg or kind of like
No,
could not tell you.
Well, no.
have
There's.
no
I'm.
idea.
You're right. You're right. Yes, Caden, you're right. There's also the theater that they use for performances. Not TPAC, but there's another one over closer to Broad and Cecil Beach. So
Oh, look
Anyway.
at that. Well, there's your temple geography
There
lesson
we
of
go.
the week.
There we
This is
go.
Brought to you by The Scoop.
in depth, behind the scenes.
How the sausage is made.
The meaning, yes, the meaning behind the screen name here of Esther Boyer. Anyway, question: can you give us a scouting report on Cora John Kuch's game? I'm pronouncing the last name there correctly, right?
I have no idea how to pronounce the last name, but we do know that his first name is pronounced Core.
Yes, spelled K-U-R. The 6'9", 220-pound forward from Northern Colorado. He doesn't seem like a switchable big that is needed in the Owls' preferred defensive scheme. Again, be lying if I said I watched, all of their games this year. The scouting report that I got from somebody whose opinion I trust, who's seen him play, the scouting report is long, super bouncy, and a high motor, decent skill level, good rebounder. So, he's originally from Kenya. He played his high school ball in London, averaged a shade under 9 points and 8.6 rebounds per game this season. Became a full-time starter by the time he was a sophomore at Northern Colorado. Had a pretty solid season, played some decent basketball near the end of the season. The Big Sky Championship, this was a team that almost, when they got to the conference championship game, almost went to the NCAA tournament. In the Big Sky Championship game last month, he had 12 points and 8 rebounds. Shot 5 of 6 from the floor. Then he averaged 12 points and a little more than 11 rebounds in 3 CBI games. So, he's on campus now. We're recording this late Wednesday afternoon. I believe he got in yesterday. So they like him enough to bring him in for a visit. So he would qualify as, a couple people I trust that said they might try to bring in 2 bigs. Maybe one guy that's more like older, more experienced, and then maybe a younger guy that's more of a developmental guy. Core would be that older guy. Sam, I'll kick this over to you. I mean, what do you think that what do you think he could bring to them? Obviously, we know that they need size. What do you think of this?
So, I mean, same as you, haven't seen a ton of him playing. Obviously haven't seen him play live. Don't know a whole lot about his game. Got a similar scouting report that you did. My immediate inclination, and I don't want to make assumptions because assumptions make an ass out of you and me. But my immediate inclination, looking at him, reading about him, seeing the very little that I could find on him, my assumption and my inclination is, and it kind of goes back to what Dante was saying about quarterbacks, is you start to throw a dart until you hit one. This feels like a similar get to what they tried to do with Sage Tolbert and didn't hit on. He's a very similar body, very similar build. From the description, it sounds like he brings something very similar to the table that they wanted to get out of Sage, and Sage didn't pan out, and now he's in the portal, which is fine. These things happen. He probably he'll find a better opportunity or thrive in a different environment, different school, which is fine. But that's the kind of player they want. They want someone who can a forward who has some experience, who has some experience winning, can get rebounds for them, can score inside. Like they don't need someone to come in and put up a forward to come in and put up 12, 15, 17 points, whatever. They need someone
Couldn't hurt.
Couldn't hurt. But they need. I mean, when you have a guy, when you're putting a guy next to Nick Jourdain, who can stretch the floor a little bit, you need someone who can bang down low. You need someone who can get rebounds. You need someone who can work in the flow of the offense. We saw how, I don't want to say detrimental, but close to it, Jake Forster could be in that offense because they couldn't get the same flow, because he couldn't move and spread the floor, and kind of go through the flow of the offense the way they needed him to. He was very, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but he was very kind of entrapped within 8 feet of the hoop. So they need someone to be able to flow through. They need someone to be able to move well. They need someone to be able to pass out of the interior. So again, this is, I don't want to say, it's something of an assumption. It's something of a guess. It's something of a strong, educated guess. But my inclination is this feels like getting another Sage Tolbert that maybe they'll hit on and maybe will work better and maybe will have a quicker impact.
Next question here from the screen name Herd Owl 51, also basketball related. Were you able to confirm the potential transfers who will be visiting? I believe Kyle mentioned this on the board. Yes, Kyle did mention this on our message board. Again, so we talked about Kuch is in today, and then 2 guards will be in next week, and I wasn't able to confirm those names. Replied to someone else on our message boards earlier today, have been able to confirm those names. So next week they will bring in 4 visits, Max Edwards from Kansas State and Colby Rogers from Siena. So a couple more intriguing targets here. So again, they lost Jeremiah Williams in the transfer portal. That one was a little bit more of the surprise, as we've talked about. I'm not breaking any news there. Ty Strickland, I think we could have anticipated that, but they do lose some offense. Certainly they lose some offense in Jeremiah Williams. They lose, arguably one of their best perimeter defenders, if not their best perimeter defender. We've talked about that. But so in Colby Rogers and Max Edwards, you've got 2 ends of the spectrum here, 2 different body types, I guess you would say. Colby Rogers is about 6'4", 184. Played at Roselle Catholic, where Nate Pierre-Louis played. And then Max Edwards, I believe, was hurt this year and redshirted at Kansas State. Let's talk a little bit about Colby Rogers first. I mean, he can shoot it. Averaged 14.1 points per game. Shot about a little shade over 42% from the floor. Would be a nice addition for them. Again, we've been hearing bigs. They need size. The guy can shoot the ball. What do you guys make of these two? I guess we'll start with Colby Rogers. Again, don't know who they're up against just yet. Didn't get a chance to just kind of confirm this right before we started recording, but a North Jersey guy. But again, I see just off the top of my head a guy that, they're going to have to, they have guys that can handle the ball, obviously. Hysier Miller probably starts. Ja can handle the ball. Jaleel White can handle the ball, can certainly defend, has great size there, can do a little bit of everything. The Big 5 Rookie of the Year. Colby Rogers gives you a guy that, again, can just kind of shoot the ball coming off the bench. What do you make of this? We'll start with Colby Rogers first.
That's exactly what you need. That was essentially Zach Hicks's role this past season. I think when you lose Jeremiah Williams, Hysier Miller steps into that first, likely your day one starting point guard. You have Damian Dunn and Caleb Battle, obviously your 2 go-to scorers. You need someone who, if one of those guys needs a blow, if one of those guys is not, shooting the like Caleb had his 4-point clunker against Clemson. In a game like that, you need someone to come off the bench and be a spark plug. That was Ty Strickland for the first couple games of the season, a little bit in the middle, and then kind of took on a bigger role as they dealt with injuries in the backcourt. Colby Rogers can be that guy. He can, if he can shoot the way he did, he has in college and comes to Temple and does the same thing. He could be a spark plug shooter off the bench. That's a huge piece. We've talked about before how important that type of player is. That Ty Strickland-esque player with consistency can be for a team like Temple. That takes them from a good backcourt to a very good backcourt to a great backcourt. Is when you have, when you have Hysier Miller and Caleb Battle and Damian Dunn, you have Zach Hicks who can shoot, and then you can bring off the bench a guy like if they're able to get a guy like Colby Rogers who can shoot the ball, who can be a playmaker. That's a spark plug they could really use.
Yeah, I think Colby Rogers would be a really good get, for Temple, kind of going off Sam, replacing that spark off the bench and need someone to score. Averaged 14.1 points per game last year. Not only had success at Siena, but he transferred from Cal Poly the year before, averaged 12 points about. So, he's had success at 2 different programs. Looks he's ready to make that, that leap potentially to a bigger conference, be a nice, bench player and give them, another guard that could score, which is what they probably need right now. So.
Yeah, and he had some. If you look just looking at what he did again. So they played in the MAC, not the Mid-American Conference, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, and had a season high of 27 against Quinnipiac at one point, 20 against Rider. Scored in double figures in the last 5 games of the season. He had 26 against Monmouth, 10 against Niagara, 14 against Quinnipiac in their conference tournament quarterfinal. And then a guy, and again we mentioned Max Edwards, an intriguing guy there. He's a bigger guard, 6'5", 220, from Connecticut. Temple, I had been told about an hour ago, recruited him a little bit out of high school. He played with the New York Lightning AAU team that's coached by Dana Dingle. That's Dan Dingle's older brother. Dana played for a very good UMass team for Sam's very own John Calipari. I say very own because you're from Massachusetts, but
yeah, basically. John Calipari.
Yeah, you're gonna look him up on, if you haven't heard of him before, you're gonna go to Kansas State's website. You're gonna say don't see any stats there, don't know much about him, but a bigger guard there. So the interesting thing obviously now will be, and we're hoping to get Damian Dunn on our podcast at some point over the next few weeks. And one of the things I'd love to ask Dame, beyond you've learned how to hit big shots, game-winning shots and stuff, but they seem to be a very close-knit group. Now does it just become a normal thing to say, okay, every year, in addition to welcoming in any recruits, it's just going to be like hitting the reset button a little bit. I shouldn't say hitting the reset button. That would kind of just denote like a huge roster overhaul, but you've got a group of guys that are really close, and now not only would you be welcoming in a couple bigs, like a big or two, now a couple of guards into the rotation. So something to keep an eye on for next week.
Yeah, 2 things. When Temple's looking for a guard, I think it's become pretty clear over the last 2 seasons that when Temple's looking for a guard, they're looking for a Heisier Miller type prototype, a tough kid from Philly, or they want a 6'5" guard with long arms who can play both ends of the floor, who can score the ball. That was Jeremiah Williams. That was Damian Dunn. That's Caleb Battle. And I think we're all somewhat working on the assumption that it's very plausible that Caleb and Damian are gone after next season. Probably more likely Caleb, but we don't obviously know anything specific about their plans. But it's a very realistic possibility those 2 are gone. So they're looking to bolster that backcourt so you can have a year under those guys and then these guys step up. It's just obviously the nature of college basketball. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here, but Max Edwards is a 6'5" guard who, a young kid who come in and be that next whatever. Same thing with Colby Rogers, who's got a few years of eligibility left, if I'm not mistaken. Could be that kind of guy we talked about being a spark plug off the bench. So they're looking at the future of that backcourt. Obviously, they have Jaleel White, Heisier Miller, Zach Hicks all have plenty of eligibility left. But I think you're preparing for the future. You're bolstering your team for this year, and you're rounding out that front court.
Here's an interesting fact. If Edwards is actually 220, he'd be the 2nd heaviest player on the team at 6'5".
Wait. It was Arashma, not anymore.
Right.
He's gone. It's got to be Emmanuel Akpoma, right?
It is. Emmanuel Akpoma listed at 225 and much bigger than Edwards. So if Edwards is really 220 at 6'5",
he's a thick boy.
He is a muscular man.
Yeah, Edwards is again, if you're...
Or he'll enjoy Chick-fil-A on campus.
Yeah,
I enjoy Chick-fil-A on campus.
Max Edwards, if you're listening, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if you've been around for a while and you've watched Temple for a long time, Max Edwards kind of has like a Mark Karcher body type. If he is half that type of player, Temple's in really, really good shape. Mark Karcher was very good. I'm thinking more body type comparison, but yeah,
sure.
He was, and again, he'd essentially be like a new, almost like bringing in a freshman. He's a class of 2021 guy out of Our Savior Lutheran in the Bronx. So again, I mentioned he played for that Long Island Lightning program, and he had an offer from Seton Hall at one point during his recruitment, Kansas State, and Seton Hall were probably his best offers. UMass offered him, Quinnipiac offered him, Robert Morris, Sacred Heart, and Townsend. So again, a couple couple names to keep an eye on. And I think one thing that I will say to fans is, again, if monitoring our message boards and people are saying, what's going on? How come they haven't gotten anybody? How come they haven't gotten anybody? This is a new age of recruiting where every program is monitoring the portal, and I don't know that there's like if they're sitting here in like late May, early June and nothing's happened for them, then I think it's, if you're a fan, if you're a member of the coaching staff, it's time to panic. But I think late April, I still think it's kind of early in this process in terms of like adding extra talent to the roster, because the coaches, and we'll get a little bit more into the portal and NIL in a second with another mailbag question here, but this is kind of what everybody's doing now, and I think for these coaches, it's almost like they're, in some ways it might feel like dating to them, like, okay, this person might be an appealing option, but what else is out there, and like that's the analogy I've heard.
What do you know
from
about this,
people.
John?
Dating?
I'm kidding.
Until I met my wife, I did a lot.
No.
No.
Kyle loves to tell old John dating stories off the record before and after the pod.
You make it sound like he does that every week. He doesn't do that every
No,
week.
it's actually been a while. He used to do it when we were in person much more. I don't know why it came up when we were in person, but
Yeah. Well, anyway.
as an aside.
So, you're hearing that here for the first time on the Scoop. So keep an eye on Max Edwards, and Colby Rogers as well. Should be coming in next week. As of now, confirmed that they're supposed to come in for visits next week. A couple guys out of the transfer portal. We just got a late mailbag question coming in from Pat Egan from 97.5 The Fanatic, which is going to be just a doozy of a question here. This is going to be good. But before we get to that one, we'll get to this one from the message board here from the screen name TU Alice 37. So the question is, if you guys have any additional insight on the NBC deal and the types of deals that are for Temple players, it would be appreciated. So that's the agreement that was just announced this week. It says, in addition, where does this put Temple from an NIL position versus their competitors? So he's referring to this NBC Sports Athlete Direct. So it involves Temple, Notre Dame, and who else is
Vanderbilt.
it? Vanderbilt. Yeah. So it's as one of our other subscribers posted on our message board. It's a step in the right direction. It does create some buzz. There's a quote here that I'll read from the release. So that quote is, "We're excited to launch NBC Sports Athlete Direct, which will add significant value to the NIL ecosystem by connecting student athletes and advertisers through a trusted marketplace that will have real scale." And that's from Damon Phillips, the Senior Vice President for Strategic Initiatives at NBC Sports. And his quote continues here, "We look forward to growing NBC Sports Athlete Direct by working with additional institutions moving forward." So, the piece that stands out to me is that will have real scale. So that's the part that resonates with me, and that's the part of what NIL was originally intended to do, and that's helping student athletes monetize their popularity and their social media followings. So it might provide pathways for players at Temple, Notre Dame, at Vanderbilt to again have these, like you said, these real scale opportunities potentially, and beyond something like, hey, I got a coupon code at a local pizza place. Like, now again, what also comes with this, however, is like that doesn't mean there are any guarantees. So it doesn't mean that like now every single student athlete at Temple is going to be able to, automatically just be sort of like enrolled in this thing. It's still, I think they're still going to be assessing like the marketability of a student athlete. Again, we talked to Tilo Kunkel about this back in the summer. It could be someone. It could be someone from like the gymnastics team or the lacrosse team who has like a huge social media following or something that goes viral. I don't know why you're laughing.
Because whenever I hear Tilo's name, I immediately think about him telling us it's like
J-Lo,
but Tilo.
but with a T. Tilo, yes. But hey, you didn't forget it.
Didn't forget
it.
It
worked.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
No, that's okay. It's fine. It's certainly something marketable. It did create some buzz. But again, when you really sink your teeth into it, there's nothing guaranteed. So I do think it's a step in the right direction. Where does this put Temple from an NIL position versus their other competitors? The other part of NIL is this, like you have a lot of players, as I see it, entering the portal who ultimately may not find a landing spot at all, or at least the level of a landing spot they were hoping for. And some of those players, I think, are entering the portal hoping for NIL money, hoping for NIL opportunities. Some of them are going to get it, and some of them aren't. And B, what you're also dealing with beyond this, there's the other like kind of unintended consequence of this was now you have like these collectives and a program's alumni or fan base where they're legally pulling money together to provide NIL opportunities for players, and that's where it's essentially become free agency. If you look at what Kendrick Davis is going to potentially be able to do out of SMU, it's a lot. I mean, and you've seen that some players, if you even just Google this stuff and look it up, there are guys that are literally finding it more profitable, and hey, good for them, to stay in school rather than test the NBA draft waters. But it really has become free agency. We know that coaches are reaching out through back channels, and I really think it's going to come down to, at some point, again, like I said, these fan bases and alumni bases coming up with collectives to say there are opportunities here. Now, can coaches say that on recruiting visits? No, they can't, as we understand it. But so I think this is a step in the right direction for Temple, because we've talked about the fact that they didn't really have anything tangibly spelled out on July 1st of 2020.
2021.
2021. Yeah.
2021.
So,
Yeah.
So again, I think it's a good thing, but again, there are no guarantees there,
Yeah.
as I understand it. So, you guys have any thoughts on this? Want to chime in?
I mean, I don't have anything crazy on it. I think you spelled it out well, that it's a step in the right direction. It's something this is a very new program. This isn't anything, like, this isn't something that has been in the works since July 1st of last year. Like, this is a new program for NBC. This is a new program in the NIL realm. This is a new program for Temple. They're in on the ground floor on this, which can be a good thing, can be a terrible thing. Only time will tell. But it's, again, it shows that Temple's doing something. It shows that although they are 9 months behind what a lot of other schools were doing, there were schools that were announcing stuff like this 9 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Temple's doing this at the end of April in 2022. So I think that part of me says, like, you know, it is what it is because it took this long, but it is, as you mentioned, a step in the right direction. You know, I think in the long term, I think it could be really good. It sounds like a really cool opportunity. Yeah, that's really all I got.
Right, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo the same thing. I mean, them just doing anything at all, I think is a good sign. I mean, you know, we've been trying to run an NIL story in long form for the Temple News all year, and there just has not been enough content on this campus to run that story. So we've had to pivot. So even just them doing this at all, just having like something, because they've been lapped by every marketable school in the area at this point. So even having something at all is a step in the right direction. Hopefully they keep going with it, because they have a lot of ground to make up, like Sam said.
Yeah, and they, I mean, some student athletes have dipped their toe in the water. I mean, I think Bella has a story coming out about Caleb Battle on his T-shirts. Even like some of the other guys, like Rashma Parks, had some like a coupon code deal or something like that.
Yeah, the issue is that
Parks all over the place.
Yeah.
Sage Tolbert, Warby Parker.
Yes,
that's right.
All in on that.
The issue though for Battle is that like he had to do that himself. Like that is just all him being a self-starter.
Yeah.
That is not the age of athletics that we are in. You need to provide as much as you possibly can as a school. I mean, good for Battle. I mean, it's great what he's doing for him, and that's phenomenal. But like, Temple needs to do more. It's really just him being like, I want to sell shirts, and he's going to do it. You know, which is fine. That's his onus. But like, other schools are like, yeah, we're going to help you sell your shirts.
Well, that's the foreboding part that every program is going to have to guard against in the future, Temple very much included, is every year you are going to have to recruit and re-recruit your current players.
Yes.
Because anybody who gets good at Temple, football or basketball, there's going to be somebody reaching out and saying, hey, if you're not from Philly, like, come back home, we can get you something here. It's free agency. You know, a buddy of mine, I've talked to a couple people about this, and a buddy of mine made the analogy where it's like, it seems like the NCAA didn't know quite what to do here, and now the toothpaste is out of the tube. It's like the scene in Ghostbusters where the mayor's like, you gotta let the ghosts out of the trap here, and like nobody knows what to do. So maybe, just maybe, Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd figure this whole thing out in the end.
I think, who should we call? I'm sorry.
I couldn't even bring myself to say the Ghostbusters because I was laughing. So, but I love it. I appreciate you just chiming in on that and going along for the ride.
Gotcha.
So, last mailbag question here. We haven't gotten one in a little bit. from Pat Egan from 97.5 The Fanatic, a member of the John Kincaid Morning Show. Pat's a loyal Scoop listener. Big-time Temple fan. Didn't go to Temple, but he's a huge Temple fan. During the football season, I do like a weekly hit.
Friend of the pod.
With yes, a friend of the pod. But we talk Temple football every week during the season. So Pat chimed in via text and said, firstly, Roy Halladay, number 34. Didn't even mention Roy Halladay. I don't know how we didn't do.
That's really bad.
Mentioned
That's
the late
really
Roy
bad.
Halladay. Again, I will plug a good friend of mine, Todd Zalek. He wrote a great book about Roy Halladay. If you haven't read it,
It is a
you're
great
missing
book.
out.
I finished
Very
it
good book.
recently. It's very good.
You read it?
Yes.
Good for you.
I did.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's the first book I've read in a while.
Very good book from
Yeah.
Zalek.
Probably shouldn't be saying that at a school, but that's okay.
That's right. You got to make time for it.
That's true.
All right, so Pat has a two-parter here. Underrated high point and low point for you covering Temple athletics. Everybody will be talking about beating Penn State and College Game Day in 2015, but take that off the list.
We won't be talking about
We
that.
won't be
'cause
talking
none of
about
us
that,
covered.
yeah.
You were the only person in this room that covered Penn State Temple in 2015.
What would be? Do you have in the time that you guys have been here a high point and low point? I'm not absolving you guys of this question. Doesn't have a high point and low point for covering Temple athletics since you guys have been here.
I got a lot of low points. I think it's a tie for me. There's like a personal low point and there's like a coverage low point. My personal one was when I showed up. This was pre-pandemic. It was that night game against Central Florida where they got outscored like 28-0 in the second half. They lost like 61-20 something.
Yeah.
I showed up to cover that game like deathly ill, and I remember sitting there watching them get blown out in the second half, and I was just like questioning my life choices at that point. It's like I could have watched this at home. And then the second one was the last game of this year when they were playing Navy, and I remember sitting there watching Navy fumble a snap, Temple recover, fumble the snap, and then Navy recover, and then they run like the shoddiest play action pass I've ever seen in my life for a touchdown. I am watching like high school football in this NFL stadium, and I'm just sitting there like trying to write that instant analysis piece was like pulling teeth for myself because I was just like, I don't know how to say it. I really just wanted the entire instant analysis to me just be like, the season's over, yay, But that was it for me.
Low point for me, first one that comes to mind is this is actually a great story. January of 2020, Temple at Penn, only Temple game I've ever covered at the Palestra. Crazy for two reasons. The first reason is the Temple didn't score for the first 9 minutes, and Quentin Rose took the lid off the rim, 9 minutes into the game.
Just a terrible game.
Just objectively horrible basketball. The other reason that game was crazy is because I have vivid memories in our group chat. Josh Pierre-Louis was sick that game, did not make the trip, and Kyle made a joke, maybe he has the coronavirus. And I didn't say anything because I didn't want to sound stupid in the chat, but in my head I'm like, is Kyle making a joke about Josh Pierre-Louis drinking too many beers? I didn't get the reference.
Oh my God.
This was January of 2020.
Wow.
Didn't know what the coronavirus was. A couple weeks later, months later, things started to unravel. And that, for me, that was the start of the pandemic.
Oh my God.
That was the first time I'd ever heard anything about the pandemic. So, low point basketball-wise, funny story because of the Kyle joke.
Do you have a high point? Anything?
No, I do. I'm
okay.
going to get to my high point.
Sorry.
Perhaps
I should have just let you finish.
This is a funny high point. There have been a lot of cool moments of covering Temple basketball, Temple football. I've had a ton of cool experiences. Owls for Justice was a really awesome experience. That was the first thing I really covered beyond just doing games and things like that. So that was a high point. But the first high point I think that made me kind of realize this is fun is my freshman year covering Temple basketball. I did a super surface level enterprise story on Quentin Rose's how superstitious he was about his headband because I covered at Temple St. Joe's. Sat next to former Owl scoop writer Matt Vender, and at halftime, Quentin Rose ripped off his headband, didn't come back in the second half, and played better with it. So I had talked to him. The next game they played UConn, which was a Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was a Tuesday night. Talked to Quentin Rose after the game about his headband, his superstition, his season, kind of surface level stuff. But for me, it was the first non-game story I did, so it was cool in the moment. Talking to Quentin Rose outside the locker room, a couple of his teammates walked by. And they were making jokes, whatever, teasing Q Rose while I was talking to him. Game's on Tuesday. I probably filed the story like Thursday, goes up Friday. That Sunday, they play Cincinnati at the Liacouras Center.
Mm-hmm.
That Sunday, they lost. But of the 13, 14 guys on the roster, 10 of them were wearing headbands. So to this day, I believe that was because of the very average story that I wrote in the middle of the season in the 2018-2019 season. But I showed up, and like the social media team was plugging, like they were all wearing headbands. It was like a whole thing that everyone was wearing headbands that game. So I thought maybe I had something to do with that because I talked to Quinn Rose about it.
Cade?
Yeah, that's great. I guess I'll start out with a high point of mine. Mine did not have been a high point for Dante. I think Dante was sick for the Temple News against Tulane, and he called out, and then I had to go.
That was so bad. Yeah, that was worse than the UCF game. That was really bad. Yeah.
So I got the text from Dante. I went to cover the Temple football game with Jay, former Temple news editor or Temple sports editor. Went to the game, first time ever sitting in the Lincoln Financial Field, press box. So I think that's something that'll always stand out. It was there with Jay. It was the day Quincy Roche set an American athletic record. I think he had 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 12 total tackles. That game really dominated, kind of like cemented.
I did not cover that game because I went to the dog show out in Oaks with my wife.
I do remember that.
And she was like one of the. It was always.
Vividly.
She would say, "I want you to come with me one year," and it's always like there. I said, It's always like the third week of November. There's always a Temple home game. Mm-hmm. I ended up watching half the game or like 3/4 of the game on TV. I was like, I could have just covered the game, but we got out there to see some of it. So sorry, little interjection there. Sorry, Kagan, go ahead.
Yeah, but Roche that was before he left for Miami, and everything kind of crumbled. For Temple football at that point, they were 7-3, and it seemed like everything was going right. So just being in that press box.
Your use of the word crumble just brought a little giggle out of Dante here.
It was just funny because it's like that is the linchpin.
And then everything crumbled.
That was it.
But that was a good overall experience, and then probably a low point. I mean, it's hard to say because there's been so many over the last 2 years just watching Temple football. Probably that Central Florida game this year. It was like 49-7, and I forget the quarterback. Mikey O'Keen is his name. It's something like that. O'Keen, I know his last name. Ken O'Keen. Something like that. I don't have it in front of me, but through like 7.
I think we just combined 2 quarterbacks. I think it's like Ryan Keene, and then it's like something O'Keefe or something.
Ryan O'Keefe.
Ryan O'Keefe.
There it is.
Oh wait, no, Ryan O'Keefe's a wide receiver.
Well, he was throwing passes to Ryan O'Keefe. Look, there was a lot of touchdowns.
Yes,
that day.
Bottom line points were scored.
Yes,
Temple lost.
Yes.
So that was your low point.
I have a quick tangent off of one of Sam's stories.
Sure, you guys get it. We're here in person. We're enjoying fellowship, memories, good, bad, and different.
So the Penn game, that was back when I still covered the basketball team for Temple News, and I wrote a column after the game that was basically just like, what the hell, guys. And I
columnist Dante column.
Oh, right. I believe that was the actual headline.
Yeah, that was the actual headline. Yeah, our old editor in chief totally let me do that, and it was. And this was back before, the Temple News never really used to be like a column paper. Like it was like pulling teeth to do columns. Now it's a lot more open. So my column was like very watered down. Like if you read my instant analysis stuff on Al Scoop, like I'm very outspoken about my opinion. But this was not one of those columns. This was like a very stat heavy column, and I really just wrote Quentin Rose's stat line in the column, and he was like 7 of 25 from the field or something outrageous. Yeah, and I remember he commented on the Instagram post on Instagram, and he was not happy with me, and I just never spoke to Quentin Rose again.
Yeah,
he just would not talk to me for the rest of the year, and I that's not why I quit covering the basketball team, but yeah, that's why I remember that game. I pissed Quentin Rose off.
Yes. I have one more that was both a high and a low. Temple ECU, I guess that was not this past season, but last season, the COVID game. What's his name? I'm totally blanking on his name. 5th string quarterback, walk on.
Kamal Gray game.
Thank you. The Kamal Gray game. It was a high point because in the moment and kind of in the days after reflecting on it, it felt like our March 14th, 2020. It felt like our little Temple version of the world going crazy, the world going awry in that single day. So from a journalistic perspective, it was really cool to cover all that. I remember, John, we were texting back and forth about writing a couple graphs on Newser of if this game gets postponed, canceled, what's going to happen. We were in our chat, we were talking about what could possibly be going on. So for all that to unravel quickly, I think journalistically it was a high point. football wise, program wise, I think it was quite the low point because they were playing a fifth string starting quarterback, and then Brandon Mack took some reps at quarterback. So that was probably the moment that sticks out the most.
My favorite part of that day was Rich coming up to me, and he just like put his hands on my shoulders and he goes, "Dante, I just want to tell you, Matt Duncan got suspended last night. He's not going to play." Claps his hands, walks away, tells the next person. They're like, all right, it's like, it's like an hour before the game starts, and I just remember it, and I was just like, all right, Rich, like, so that was a crazy day.
Yeah.
So if we're taking the Penn State game and Notre Dame week off the table from 2015, a couple high points, a couple low points for football, basketball. I think football, a couple of the high points might be like that 2016 season where they won a conference championship and being on the field when they were celebrating that down in Annapolis. I mean, they beat Navy pretty soundly. They executed well, played well. Just seeing the Temple fans that made it down there, the celebration, the trophy presentation, that game was on ABC that day. I took video of the guys coming into the tunnel. I mean, it was really, in terms of the opponent, I get it. It wasn't as big as Penn State, but they did, in 2015, they start off 7-0. They almost beat Notre Dame. And then the way that season ended, they lost to Houston and Greg Ward down there, a very good Houston team down there. And then played a clunker of a game against Toledo in the Boca Raton Bowl, I guess, right? So they finished that season 10-4. So the front end of it was super memorable. The back end of it, I mean, they still go to a conference championship game, but wasn't as memorable. 2016, they win a conference championship. That was a pretty cool moment, just to see all the confetti coming down and stuff like that. Seeing them beat UConn to just in the regular season finale. I guess it was the regular season finale to win the division. That was a pretty cool moment. For basketball, high point, there are a couple there.
Were you at Madison Square Garden for the Khalif Wyatt game?
Yes, I was. I mean, that's up there. I mean, the way he played against Syracuse, and I remember fans saying, "Well, if Michael Carter Williams can get drafted, then Khalif Wyatt can get drafted," but that's not how the draft works.
Correct.
And, Kyle will always say that he hates Jim Boeheim because Jim Boeheim was just so curmudgeonly and condescending that day. And I think Kyle asked a question about Anthony Lee, but that was a great day. It was 3 days before Christmas. Went up and we had some good Italian food after the game somewhere in New York City, and that was a memorable game. But I think maybe seeing Fran Dunphy win his first NCAA tournament game, covering that game when they, Juan Fernandez hits that last second shot against Penn State, that was a pretty cool game to cover. I think another game that stands out to me, and I'll go back in Chaney's career. I just remember kind of like the emotion of the day. So I mean, this goes way back to the 2001 season, and Lynn Greer helps them beat GW to get to the A10 tournament finals. I mean, they were down 11 in that game, and he basically just leaned in to a defender, drew a foul call, hits three foul shots to win the game. If they don't beat GW in that game, they're not going to the tournament. Mm-hmm. They just didn't have the resume. And then they beat UMass in the conference championship game, the A10 championship game. That's when they were still playing the tournament at the Spectrum, at the First Union Spectrum. That was a fun. I used to love covering the A10 tournament. It was a really fun atmosphere. They would get pretty decent crowds. At Boardwalk Hall later, it was great. But I just remember, I just felt like a lot of people around the program were really emotional, like crying. And this was a tournament semifinal game because I think people knew what was on the line. And the year before, of course, they had lost. I mean, this got brought up a lot this year with Ty Shine playing with Shaheen Holloway, who's now coaching at St. Peter's and now back at Seton Hall. There was the disappointment of the year before where they were loaded, and that was the team that should have gone to the Final Four. And then in 2001, Chaney really didn't have a ton of depth. I mean, he had a good starting five, but they were kind of piecing things together with guys like Greg Jefferson, Alex Wesby was young, and Lynn just saved him in that game. But people were like really emotional and really almost like crying, like, wow, like Lynn Greer saved the fan base from this disappointment. And then the championship game against UMass and a Bruiser Flint coach UMass team was a lot less suspenseful. But I just remember a lot about that day and about that weekend. People were just like, wow, kind of just like it was like a shot in the arm for the fan base. And that obviously turned out to be Chaney's last NCAA tournament run. It was a memorable one. They went to the Elite Eight, but like that game stands out to me. Again, I mean, Cheney's had better wins. I got to cover the opener in the Leacorp Center before it was called Leacorp Center when they played Fresno State and Jerry Tarkanian. I mean, Jerry Tarkanian really kind of built his career coaching at UNLV, but that was such a memorable game. They tried to get Bobby Knight in Indiana in there. Bobby Knight told Cheney, I'm going to play you. I can't play you in December, but they played him in November that year. So low points, I mean, covered a lot of bad football and during the Ron Dickerson era and Bobby Wallace eras. Saw a lot of good players, but I don't know. This year, a lot of bad football. You guys covered a lot of it. In basketball, I would say it was tough to be there the night of the Goongate game in 2005 against St. Joe's. I know it's a sore spot for Temple's fan base, but in February 2005, again, I mean, most of you who are listening know this, but John Cheney sends in Nehemiah Ingram, who was otherwise a really great kid, and he said after the game, yeah, I sent him in to commit hard fouls. And he said they said send in the goons, and but things were chippy during that game. And I remember I was standing next to Mike Kern in the media room, in the Al Schreier media room, before Cheney came in, and Mike turns to me in his Northeast Philly accent. He's like, Johnny, it's not going to be good. Not going to be good, babe. He calls, I don't know if I was talking to you about this, calls everybody babe, and he's like, not going to be good, babe. And it wasn't. And Cheney just came in. And, yeah, again, there's so much that's been written about this. People have talked about this. I mean, Cheney was just really openly honest about what some other coaches have done.
Yeah.
You know? And ironically enough, at some point, John Calipari came to his defense, after a while. But it was a tough night. It was everything that came with it, because you saw a guy who had otherwise had a great, great career just getting crapped on for, weeks on end. But to be there for it was a little surreal, because it was at the tail end of Cheney's career, because after that 2001 season, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, the last 4 or 5 seasons of his career weren't as good. Obviously, it doesn't take away from the man's legacy, but that was maybe a low point. And again, football, pick anything from this season, and I mean, there's a lot of bad football to draw from, not any specific moment, but
yeah,
that's what I got there.
The one thing I want to add as a high point off of, we're talking about John Cheney, was when John Cheney passed away in January of 2021. I know Dante wrote a great profile on John Cheney for the Temple News when he passed, but John, the work that we did on those like mini stories of talking with former players, coaches, people around that spent time around him, people that spent time around the program, just kind of like they're talking about their connection and them sharing stories about John Cheney, I thought was a lot of fun, and some of the more rewarding reporting and stories I think we've put together. So that was really cool, that little mini series we did when John Cheney passed away.
And then the other part of Pat's question here, very Pat-esque. So this is the second part of his. I don't know, Kaden, if you've ever heard one of Pat's two-parter questions here, and so it's something more substantial and serious and then more goofy. It's 4:12 a.m. and your phone rings. In a moment of weakness, you didn't put it on Do Not Disturb. You find out everyone on your show has been arrested. It's all desperate crimes, just a crazy coincidence that the Scoop all celebrated the purge. What was everyone arrested for?
Oh my God.
That's a tough one.
Sam, we'll lead off with you.
Oh my God.
So in your role, you're picking up the phone, and you find out that Dante, Caden, Kyle, and I, Javon, well, poor Javon, he hasn't been here the past few episodes. I don't know if we should throw Javon in. We'll keep Javon out of this.
All right. I'm gonna see
He's been good.
I'm gonna see what I can do off the top of my head. John gets arrested for stealing an inordinate amount of Italian food. Like going into an Italian restaurant, guns a-blazing, stealing as much food as you can, dining and dashing.
Where did I get my guns?
That's all off the record. So John steals an inordinate amount of Italian food. Dante writes an insane hit piece that someone really did not take lightly, and it somehow gets Dante arrested. I haven't fleshed out the idea of what Dante wrote about, but it's a thriller of a hit piece. Caden gets arrested for talking to recruits in a moment where it's against an NCAA violation to talk to recruits. And it's not Caden's fault, though. That's the interesting part, is Caden's just watching practice, and a swarm of recruits come up to him, and then there just happens to be an NCAA official at this practice, and Caden gets booked, fired, jail. No, they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear his excuses about who came up to who. Caden was talking to recruits he wasn't supposed to be. Caden, you're gone.
I see Caden being very cooperative. Like, it's okay, I got everybody's number.
No, they don't care. They don't care. They're all coming up, Mr. Steele, Mr. Steele. Nope. The NCAA official sees Caden talking to recruits. It's an NCAA violation. Jail.
Caden gets his one phone call from jail, and he calls a recruit. Not his family. You want to call your parents? No, there's this guy.
Temple just offered a 4-star, man.
Yeah.
There's a 4-star from the Baltimore area. I gotta talk to him.
I'll use the payphone for the interview, and I'll record on my iPhone.
What would Kyle or Javon get arrested for?
I was gonna say Kyle's going to jail for going after somebody. It's either Jim Boeheim or John Rothstein.
I think I got one for Javon. Javon would break into an NBA front office, find all the analytical sheets with stats, and
Rip them
that's
apart.
rip them apart.
Rip them apart.
Javon tweeted this earlier this morning. He said, a house a block away is playing El DeBarge, and I can't even be mad at it. And I said, what song were they playing? He said,
that.
Rhythm of the Night. It just warmed my heart. I could see Javon maybe, like, just getting arrested for some sort of noise ordinance for playing, like, the Temptations, like, late at night. Otherwise, he's just a tremendous kid, as you all are. Wait,
what does Kyle get arrested for? I don't know what I don't know what I get arrested for.
Kyle
Kyle get arrested for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
I could see Kyle get arrested.
Making Kyle sound like a total degenerate right now. He's otherwise a good human being.
I could see in 20 years, Kyle's no longer doing much coverage. Kyle's got 2 kids he's trying to get through college. Kyle's runs into Jim Boeheim in the supermarket. Jim
Boeheim's probably dead at that point.
He's what, 60?
Yeah, I don't know how old he is. No,
Jim
he's a little
Boeheim,
older than that.
Is he? Jim Boeheim has a cane and a top hat.
He's 77.
Yeah, he's 77.
Okay.
I was going to say.
I thought it was
so
mid-60s.
If Jordan is 2, 16 years from now, they're going to be putting Jordan through college, and they've got a daughter on the way. Yeah, Jim Boeheim would be 93 at that point.
He runs into an old curmudgeon, Jim Boeheim. Kyle sees it as a moment of weakness. Jim Boeheim shoots a look at Kyle, muffles something under his breath, and Kyle just beats the crap out of him. Wait, what was the thing about Kyle? Was it a dream about him fighting like a bear? No,
A camel.
A camel.
It's a camel.
A camel.
Yeah, Kyle tries to fight a camel, and he gets like a public misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I getting arrested for?
Dante, any thoughts on this?
I don't know. They if someone somehow bans Back to the Future, you get arrested for pirating it. You have the last copy of Back to the Future, and you're just running through the streets take it.
I can see it happening.
Yeah, it's some weird dystopia.
Or I just invent time travel, and they're like, no, this is.
Caden gets arrested for breaking into the Apple store because he's busted his computer for the 4th time this year. And he's like, I need to write. It's not ready yet. So he's getting apprehended somewhere around 16th and Walnut, wherever the Apple store is in Center City. Dante absolutely gets arrested breaking in somewhere, trying to steal all 22
Needs
film.
the all 22.
Needs all 22.
I have already done illegal things to get all 22.
Don't talk about it.
Yeah, so,
I don't want to hear about it.
At the FBI, I'm kidding. Probably.
There would be a huge police raid in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. He's sitting there and Greg Cosell's at the door while on bed.
That's great. That's great. Sam, what would Sam get arrested for?
I don't know. I can't think of anything I would get arrested for. Well, I never told you guys about the time I did get arrested, did I?
What?
I'm totally kidding.
That was street love.
Sam
totally
gets
kidding.
arrested for breaking into a gluten-free food outlet. And
Is
he
that what
just,
you think? Is that
he
what
just
you think
can't
about?
wait to get in. It's
Is that what you
4 in the
think?
morning. He's like, I'm so hungry.
Is that what you think I get arrested for, John?
Do you have anything better?
No.
I'm sorry I wasn't prepared. I didn't have 2 days to prepare for Pat's question here. I don't know. Good one, Pat.
But to our listeners, if you have any suggestions for what any of us would get arrested for, throw them on the message boards.
There we go. Yes.
Tweet at us.
That's a
We'd
great
like to
idea.
hear.
Just,
We'd love to
keep
hear.
That's a great idea.
Keep them clean. Keep them funny, but keep them clean.
Yeah, please.
Anyway, well, it was good seeing you guys in person.
It's
Had
great.
a lot of fun with this. And thanks for sticking with us, everyone, for another episode. And we will talk to you guys soon.